Hi guys, thanks for tuning into my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the most frustrating time of my natural hair journey, especially when I first went natural, and that is single strand knots. I'm sure some people are like, oh god. Yes, they are frustrating. They can make you feel like you're not looking after your hair well enough. You may be doing so many things in your regimen to really try and look after your hair and prevent them, but they can make you feel otherwise. If, for example, you blow dry your hair or you straighten it, you may not get the finish you desire because these knots are just chilling in your hair despite the fact that you've straightened or blow dried it. If you don't know what single strand knots are or how they come about, essentially they're usually caused by tangling, and they are the formation of a knot at usually the bottom of your hair strand. They can, in my opinion, be reduced significantly, but I will just say it now, I'll put a disclaimer out there. I don't believe that you can completely eliminate them, and from other videos that I've watched or from like articles I've read, I don't know anybody that has said that you can completely get rid of them. So yes, they form at the bottom of your strands. They can lead to breakage, especially if you're tempted to just yank them out. You know, you're stretching your strand and you can get things like split ends. So this was something that honestly absolutely killed me when I first went natural. Especially this year, the start of the year or the past couple of months, I've learned to really reduce them, so much so that they do not bother me. If I come across one or two, fine, but in terms of being plagued by them, I don't worry about them. So here are some steps, or here are some tips on how you can reduce single strand knots too. So tip number one, guys, reduce wash and goes. Now I know some of us love our wash and goes, but I personally have experienced that as someone with a tighter curl pattern, so if you do the whole curl typing thing, as someone who's kind of, I believe it's on the right end of the curl chart, who has a curl pattern that is a lot tighter, I find that, you know, once our hair's been washed, it's in a more shrunken state, it's more condensed, and that basically means that, you know, our curls are a lot more close to one another, and the likelihood of them tangling and catching on one another is increased. Now I don't know about you, but whenever I do a twist out, day one hair is just not really my favorite, and the reason for that is, you know, once you've washed your hair, in most cases your hair has taken in so much water. No matter how much you moisturize it, it can be that your hair's taken in so much water it can't take in as much of the moisturizer as would be needed to give you the soft result I believe most naturals would like on day one. So because of this, our hair again is likely to be a little bit harder, especially if you're living in somewhere like the UK where we have in some areas harder water. So definitely, if you can, avoid wash and goes. I experience single strand knots the most when I wash and go, hence why I don't do it. Second tip, guys, silk or satin headscarves to bed 100%. And even if you don't like wearing them, you can think of, you know, making a DIY silk or satin pillowcase. I have a video on that, so no excuses. Basically, you know, when there is friction between our hair and other materials or even clothes that we're wearing, we increase the likelihood of knots. Silk or satin headscarves or pillowcases or bonnets or whatever you call them provide a smoother surface, so our hair can more easily glide on the surface as opposed to kind of experience friction and like, yeah. So basically, silk or satin headscarves to bed. Tip number three, guys, do everything in sections. If you have not been working with your hair in sections prior to this video, I would really encourage you to consider it. Working in sections, whether that be when you are detangling or pre-pooing or shampooing, what have you, really does help to reduce tangles. It makes your hair more manageable and it's just easier to deal with. So definitely work in sections. You don't have to do too many sections when you're conditioning or when you're detangling. You can even work in 4 sections. The more hair you have or the thicker the hair you have, you may want to work in more sections, but definitely everything. I live in sections. Tip number 4, guys, is detangling. Detangling definitely helps to get rid of your tangles, and there are several ways that you can do it. So first of all, let's look at how do you detangle, or what do you detangle with. Some people swear by finger detangling, so just using your fingers and kind of working through the sections of your hair. I personally love that method because I find that I can really feel what's happening in my hair and I can be more gentle with my hair. Or if you prefer, then definitely find a really good detangling tool. I've mentioned in previous videos the Felicia Leatherwood detangling brush. So find yourself a detangling tool, and regardless of whichever detangling tool you opt for, don't forget to start detangling from the bottom up. You don't want to detangle from the top down because you'll definitely come to a stage where you meet a tangle, or you meet, you know, a knot that you've created, because it's just more difficult to detangle from the top down. Now onto what you can use to detangle. I mentioned in my last video the Coil Calm Detangler by Cantu. Absolutely love that. But if you are someone who detangles prior to shampooing, then maybe investing in a pre-poo that helps to soften your hair, such as one of my favorites, the Philip Kingsley Elasticizer Extreme, to help make your detangling process a lot easier. If you detangle after you've conditioned your hair, then of course you're going to be using conditioner. And if you're someone who wants to detangle outside of wash day, you know, just during the week to stretch your hair or to get rid of any tangles or knots, then I would definitely recommend something like the Coil Calm Detangler. So guys, definitely consider detangling. I know you've heard this 1,000,001 times, moisturizing and sealing. Essentially, it's just something done to really help encourage moisture retention in your hair, and it's a simple process whereby you apply a moisturizer to the strands of your hair and you follow up with just a little amount of a butter or an oil to seal in that moisture and reduce the speed in which the moisture can evaporate from the strands of your hair, thus making your strands smoother, thus allowing them to glide more smoothly against one another as opposed to catching and creating a knot. Now, to take that a step further, you may have heard of the LOC or the LCO method, which stands for leave-in or liquid oil cream, or leave-in or liquid cream oil. Now, the method you choose is completely up to you, but like I said, this takes moisturizing and sealing a step further by adding another step, which is either one of the three products that I mentioned. This again is just like moisturizing and sealing, but works even harder to really stop the loss of moisture from your strands and make them smoother and reduce tangling. Now, something that I do which takes both of those methods, in my opinion, a step further is, once I've done either of those two methods, I get my Misto oil sprayer, which you've probably seen in some videos before, and I spray some extra oil onto the bottom of the strands of my hair, so usually a twist that I've done for a twist out, and I do this all over just so the ends of my hair really are super lubricated and have less of a reason to tangle upon each other. Another technique used to reduce these SSKs is oil rinsing. Oil rinsing is done in the shower. It's just another technique to help really make your hair really soft, provide the slip, and help to kind of reduce the tangling and hold on to as much moisture as possible. So it's usually done after conditioner, whereby you put some oils in your hands and you just rub them through your hair, you let it sit for a couple of minutes, and then you rinse it out, and that is it. So as you can imagine, if you were to wash your face and then you were to not dry your face but just put some oils on your face would be super slippery, and that is a similar result that the oil rinsing is supposed to give to your hair. Now, the next tip, probably going to be everyone's least favourite, but let's be real, let's get scissor friendly. Now, if you are experiencing single strand knots, I have 3 bits of advice as to how you can reduce them, and that is, you can either trim them, you can do what we call dusting, or if you're not really into either of those, you can consider search and destroy. So trimming is probably for the sisters out there who really are not that scared of their pair of scissors or losing a teeny weeny bit of length. Trimming is great. Of course, we encourage trimming our hair when it needs trimming, or some people believe in trimming every month or every 3 months, etc. Essentially, trimming single strand knots is the easiest way to completely try and really reduce them. Trimming is also great because it gives a nice finish to your ends. Oh my gosh, I love the way my hair looks when it's just been trimmed and it's either been straightened or blow dried. So trimming isn't all that bad. Now, if you're not really a fan of trimming, you don't believe you're in need of a trim and you'd rather not, then you may want to consider something called dusting. Dusting, I believe, is a lighter version of trimming, but it can be done on a more frequent basis. Essentially, you don't cut off as much as you may do when you trim. You work with a tiny amount of your hair and you basically dust it off. And like I said, this can be done, you know, every month, every 2 months, and some people find this really successful in, one, reducing their knots, but overall reducing split ends because their ends are constantly being cleaned and dusted. The final one of the scissor happy tip is search and destroy, which is for my lovely ladies who really are not scissor happy and who would rather not have to dust or trim. Essentially, this is the longest technique of all of them and requires you to, you know, work with very small sections of your hair on a day when you've got a lot of time and look for the knots and snip them out with your scissors. Again, it is the longest process of all three. The tip that I would give, just to summarize all of them, is please do not yank out your knots with your hands. Just don't do it. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, you know, when you pull on your strands that much, you can actually stretch out the entire strand and that can lead to breakage and things such as split ends in the long term. So you don't want to do that. So the next tip, guys, is one that's probably down to preference and it's really from my own personal experience, and that is shampooing your scalp only. So I personally only apply shampoo to my scalp and not to the strands of my hair. I find when I shampoo my scalp, the shampoo travels. It finds a way of getting to my strands and I'm always, you know, really happy with how clean my hair is without directly applying shampoo to the strands of my hair. If you don't have a shampoo that you find is, you know, quite moisturizing and you do find that your shampoo usually kind of leaves your hair feeling quite dry, then this tip may especially be for you. So the final tip is low manipulation. Now this may mean so many different things to different people. It may mean putting down the tools that you use so much during the week. It may mean opting more for protective styles. If you're someone who wears your hair out a lot, think about what you're wearing. Are you wearing materials that cause a lot of friction between your hair and the material? Are you someone who's using your comb like every day of the week? Consider finger detangling or working with your fingers. Low manipulation is a definite must. Finally, I just want to say, do not be discouraged if you have single strand knots. It's great if you're trying to kind of reduce them, but don't allow this to become something that really becomes the most important part of your hair care regimen. Enjoy your hair and understand that pretty much every natural has single strand knots. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please share any tips that I've missed out in the description box. Let me know. I would love to know what tips you have for me and even for other ladies out there. Mwah! Thanks for watching.